Hello there, and welcome back to Sleepy Science Society. Tonight, we're embarking on a gentle journey through one of Earth's most extraordinary landscapes, where time itself seems to slow down, and ancient giants reach toward the sky with patient, enduring grace. We're traveling into the realm of the coast redwood trees, those towering monuments that have witnessed centuries unfold and continue to stand as silent guardians along a narrow strip of the Pacific coastline. As you settle in for this peaceful exploration, I invite you to get comfortable wherever you are. Let your body sink a little deeper into your resting place. Feel the weight of the day beginning to lift. And if you find yourself enjoying these quiet journeys into the natural world, perhaps you'll consider liking this video or subscribing to the channel. It helps other sleepy souls discover this little corner of calm, where science becomes a gentle companion to rest. But for now, all you need to do is breathe slowly and allow your mind to drift with me into the misty, moss-covered world of the redwoods. Imagine standing at the base of a tree so tall that its crown disappears into the fog above, hidden somewhere in the soft gray mist that blankets the forest. The bark before you is thick and deeply furrowed, colored in rich shades of cinnamon and rust, soft beneath your fingertips, yet remarkably resilient. The air around you feels cool and damp, carrying the earthy scent of decomposing needles and the faint mineral smell of fog. Somewhere high above, so distant it seems impossible, branches sway in a breeze you cannot yet feel down here on the forest floor. This is the world of Sequoia sempervirens, the coast redwood, and tonight we'll explore every layer of its existence, from the ancient soil that cradles its shallow roots to the sky gardens flourishing hundreds of feet above our heads. The redwood forest is more than just a collection of trees. It is a living cathedral, a place where light filters through layers of green in shifting beams, where silence wraps around you like a blanket, and where the passage of time becomes almost tangible. These trees have stood through the rise and fall of civilizations, through countless seasons of rain and fog, through fires and floods, and the patient, relentless march of years. Tonight, as your eyes grow heavy and your breathing deepens, we'll wander together through this remarkable ecosystem, discovering the intricate relationships that allow these giants to thrive, the creatures that make their homes in this vertical wilderness, and the delicate balance that sustains one of the most biodiverse forests on Earth. So, let your shoulders drop. Let the tension in your jaw release. There's nowhere you need to be but here, drifting through the redwood forest as the evening deepens and the fog rolls in from the Pacific, bringing moisture and mystery to these ancient groves. The giants among us. When you first encounter a coast redwood in its natural habitat, your mind struggles to comprehend the scale before you. These are not merely tall trees. They are living skyscrapers, organic towers that stretch upward with a determination that seems to defy the basic laws of physics and biology. The tallest coast redwood ever measured stands at 380 feet, a height that surpasses a 37-story building. If you were to stand at its base and look up, trying to see the crown, you would strain your neck backward until it ached, and still the top would remain hidden, lost somewhere in the canopy, or shrouded in the coastal fog that so often blankets these forests. To put this in perspective that our sleepy minds can grasp, imagine you are standing next to a tree whose trunk alone, before any branches begin, reaches higher than the Statue of Liberty from ground to torch. The tallest confirmed redwood, a tree named Hyperion discovered in Redwood National Park, measures 380.1 feet tall. For years, this specific tree's location has been kept secret by park authorities to protect it from the damage that comes with too much human attention. But Hyperion is not alone in its grandeur. Throughout the redwood forests of Northern California, dozens of trees reach heights exceeding 350 feet, and hundreds more tower above 300 feet. Height, however, is only one aspect of the redwood's impressive physical presence. These trees also grow remarkably wide. The trunk of a mature coast redwood can measure up to 29 feet in diameter at breast height, though the average old-growth specimen tends to be somewhat smaller, usually ranging from 15 to 20 feet across. Still, imagine wrapping your arms around a trunk 29 feet wide. You would need approximately 8 or 9 adult humans, arms outstretched and fingertips touching, to encircle such a tree. Historical records describe even larger specimens from the 19th century, including one hollow shell of a coast redwood in the Oakland Hills of Alameda County that measured more than 32 feet in diameter. These measurements came from a time before extensive logging, when the largest and oldest trees still dotted the landscape in greater abundance. The trunk itself rises with remarkable straightness, showing the vertical orientation that makes redwood lumber so prized in construction. The wood grows in tight, even rings, reflecting the tree's steady accumulation of biomass over centuries. This straightness extends upward for many dozens of feet before the first major branches emerge, creating a clear column that seems to pierce the sky. The bark covering this enormous trunk serves as both armor and insulation, growing thick and fibrous, sometimes reaching 12 inches in depth on the oldest trees. This bark is unusually soft for such a massive tree, with a texture almost like thick cork or coarse fabric. When you press your hand against it, it yields slightly, not with the rigid hardness of most tree bark, but with a cushioned resistance that speaks to its composition. The color of redwood bark gives these trees their name. It glows in shades of cinnamon, rust, and deep reddish brown, especially when wet from fog or rain. The outer bark peels away in long fibrous strips, creating deep vertical furrows that run the length of the trunk. These furrows provide habitat for insects, spiders, and tiny plants, creating microhabitats within the bark itself. The reddish color comes from tannins, the same chemical compounds that protect the wood from decay, insects, and disease. These tannins make the bark and heartwood taste bitter, discouraging herbivores and wood-boring insects that would otherwise damage the tree. The bark's thickness and chemical composition also provide remarkable resistance to fire, allowing mature redwoods to survive flames that would kill most other tree species. But perhaps the most surprising feature of these enormous trees is what lies beneath the soil. Despite their towering height and massive weight, coast redwoods lack a taproot, that deep central root that anchors many other large trees. Instead, their root systems spread outward rather than downward, rarely penetrating more than 10 to 13 feet into the earth. This shallow root system might seem inadequate for such a tall tree, vulnerable to toppling in high winds. And indeed, wind throw remains the primary cause of natural mortality among mature redwoods. However, the trees have evolved a remarkable adaptation to compensate for their shallow roots. The roots of coast redwoods extend horizontally for 60 to 100 feet from the trunk, sometimes even farther, creating a broad, shallow network that covers an enormous area. More importantly, these roots intertwine and fuse with the roots of neighboring redwoods, forming an underground lattice that connects individual trees into a mutually supportive community. This interconnected root system allows the trees to brace against each other, distributing the stress of wind and weather across multiple trunks. A redwood grove functions almost like a single organism in this respect, with individual trees physically linked through their roots, sharing stability and, some research suggests, even nutrients and water through these connections. When one tree dies and falls, the gap it leaves in the canopy eventually fills with new growth. But underground, its root system may continue supporting its neighbors for many years, slowly decomposing while still providing structural support. The longevity of coast redwoods matches their impressive size. These trees commonly live for 1,200 to 1,500 years, with some confirmed individuals reaching ages of 2,200 years or more. The oldest known coast redwood, determined through careful counting of growth rings, approached 2,200 years of age. This means that some trees alive today were already ancient when the Roman Empire flourished, when the Great Wall of China was still being constructed, when the classical civilizations of Greece and Persia shaped the ancient world. These trees have witnessed more human history than almost any other living organism on Earth. Standing patient and silent while empires rose and fell, while human knowledge expanded from scrolls to screens, while the very climate of the planet began to shift under the influence of industrial civilization. As you imagine a tree that has lived for 2 millennia, let that thought settle gently into your mind. 2,000 years of rain and fog, 2,000 years of seasons cycling from the wet winters to the dry summers of coastal California, 2,000 years of roots growing slowly outward, of bark thickening grain by grain, of branches reaching toward filtered sunlight. The redwoods do not hurry. They add their rings patiently, year after year, measuring time in a way that makes our human lives seem like brief flickers. And as we drift deeper into sleep tonight, we can rest easy knowing that these ancient beings continue their slow growth, their patient reach toward the sky, their quiet endurance in the face of all that time brings. A narrow coastal kingdom. The coast redwood occupies one of the most restricted ranges of any major tree species in the world, and yet within that narrow band, it creates an ecosystem of extraordinary richness and complexity. If you were to trace the natural range of Sequoia sempervirens on a map, you would draw a thin line along the Pacific coast of North America, beginning in the extreme southwestern corner of Oregon and extending southward through California to the Santa Lucia Mountains of southern Monterey County. This coastal strip measures approximately 450 to 750 miles in length, depending on how you account for gaps in the distribution, but it remains remarkably narrow throughout, rarely extending more than 5 to 35 miles inland from the ocean. This restricted range reflects the specific environmental conditions that redwoods require to survive and thrive. The trees need the precise combination of temperature, moisture, and fog that occurs only in this coastal zone, shaped by the cold California current that flows southward along the coast, bringing cool water from the Gulf of Alaska. This current creates the conditions necessary for the formation of summer fog, that characteristic gray blanket that rolls in from the Pacific during the dry months, wrapping the coastal forests in moisture when rainfall ceases. Without this fog, the redwoods would not be able to meet their enormous water requirements during the summer drought that characterizes California's Mediterranean climate. The elevational range of coast redwoods further illustrates their environmental specificity. Most redwood forests occur between 30 and 750 meters above sea level, with occasional stands found near sea level and others climbing to about 900 meters in favorable locations. The best and largest groves, however, grow at relatively low elevations in the deep valleys and gullies that cut through the coastal mountains. These valleys provide several advantages. They channel fog inland from the coast, they offer protection from strong ocean winds, they accumulate deeper and richer soils from erosion of the surrounding slopes, and they often contain year-round streams that provide supplemental moisture during the dry season. The finest redwood groves are found on flat benches along large streams, on moist coastal plains, in river deltas, and in valleys that open toward the ocean. In these locations, redwoods achieve their maximum growth rates and their largest sizes. The alluvial soils in these areas tend to be deep, well-drained, and rich in nutrients, having been built up over millennia by seasonal flooding and the accumulation of organic matter. Soil moisture in prime redwood habitat rarely drops below 60% even during summer, and this consistent availability of water allows the trees to maintain their physiological processes throughout the year without entering the severe drought stress that would limit their growth. Interestingly, despite growing so close to the ocean, coast redwoods do not tolerate direct exposure to ocean winds or salt spray. The trees are notably absent from exposed hillsides that face directly toward the Pacific, and they perform poorly in areas where ocean winds blow constantly. Salt damages their needles, and the persistent wind can physically damage branches and interfere with the delicate process of fog drip that provides so much of their summer moisture. As a result, the redwood belt typically begins a mile or two inland from the immediate coast, protected by a band of more salt-tolerant vegetation such as Sitka spruce, shore pine, and various coastal scrub species. The soils that support redwood forests, derive primarily from marine sandstone formed during the Tertiary and Upper Mesozoic periods, along with shale, limestone, and various metamorphic rocks. The high site soils for redwood growth belong to several specific soil series, including the Hugo, Josephine, Melbourne, Empire, Sites, and Larrabee series. These soils generally have good drainage, moderate acidity, and high organic content, characteristics that favor the shallow root systems of redwoods while providing adequate nutrients and water-holding capacity. The terrain of the redwood region is rugged and mountainous, characterized by steep ridges cut by deep, narrow valleys. Many of these valleys contain fast-flowing streams that can flood dramatically during winter storms, depositing fresh alluvium and maintaining the fertility of the floodplain soils. The topography creates a complex mosaic of microclimates, with cool, foggy valleys contrasting sharply with warmer, drier slopes just a few hundred yards away. This topographic diversity contributes to the overall biodiversity of the region, as different plant and animal communities occupy different positions along the elevation and moisture gradients. The current distribution of coast redwoods represents only a fraction of their historical range. Fossil evidence reveals that relatives of the modern coast redwood once grew throughout much of the northern hemisphere, including Europe and Asia. During the Jurassic period, more than 150 million years ago, sequoia-like trees flourished in climates that were generally warmer and wetter than today. As the Earth's climate cooled and dried during subsequent geological periods, particularly during the ice ages of the Pleistocene, the range of these trees contracted dramatically. In North America, redwoods retreated to the narrow coastal strip where they persist today, the last refuge where the combination of mild temperatures, winter rain, and summer fog continues to provide suitable habitat. Evidence from the La Brea tar pits in Los Angeles shows that coast redwood bark existed in that region between 25,000 and 40,000 years ago, during the last ice age. At that time, redwoods grew as far south as present-day Los Angeles, where the climate was cooler and presumably wetter than it is today. As the ice age ended and the climate warmed, the southern range boundary of the redwoods retreated northward. Scientists suggest that the remarkable ability of redwoods to sprout after fire may have allowed them to persist in southern forests longer than they otherwise would have. But eventually, even this adaptation could not compensate for increasing temperatures and decreasing moisture. Today, the southernmost native grove grows in the Santa Lucia Mountains of Monterey County and attempts to cultivate redwoods farther south. Generally require artificial irrigation during summer. To the north, fossil evidence indicates that redwoods once grew considerably farther into Oregon and possibly even Washington. An upright fossil stump of a coast redwood was documented on a beach in central Oregon, 160 miles north of the current northern range limit. This suggests that during the past periods when climates were more favorable, redwoods occupied a larger territory than they do today. The current northern limit, at approximately latitude 42 degrees 9 minutes north in southwestern Oregon, appears to reflect either temperature limitations, moisture limitations, or some combination of factors that prevent the species from establishing farther north despite the presence of seemingly suitable habitat. Interestingly, coast redwoods have proven capable of growing in locations far from their native range when cultivated by humans. The trees have been successfully planted in New Zealand, various parts of Europe including Britain, France, and Spain, and even in California's Central Valley and the foothills of the Sierra Nevada. In Britain alone, it is estimated that there are about 500,000 redwoods, most planted during the Victorian era when explorers and botanists brought back seeds and seedlings from California. However, these cultivated trees typically do not achieve the same enormous sizes as those in the native coastal fog belt, and they often require supplemental water during dry periods. This demonstrates that while redwoods can survive in various temperate climates, they truly thrive only within the specific environmental envelope provided by their native coastal range. As we consider this narrow kingdom of the redwoods, this restricted strip of land where specific conditions allow these giants to flourish, we can appreciate how fragile and precious this ecosystem really is. Any changes to the climate patterns, moisture availability, or temperature regime of the coastal zone could potentially shrink the range even further, pushing these ancient trees into an ever smaller refuge. Let that thought drift through your mind as your breathing deepens and slows. The redwoods stand in their narrow kingdom, patient and enduring, adapted to the specific gift of fog and rain that the Pacific coast provides. And we, for this moment, stand with them in imagination, wrapped in their story, sheltered by their presence, as sleep begins to embrace us. The marriage of fog and forest. In the heart of summer, when the interior valleys of California bake under relentless sunshine and the landscape turns golden brown with drought, the coast redwood forest remains cool and green, wrapped in a gray blanket of fog that arrives almost every afternoon. This fog is not incidental to the redwood's survival. It is absolutely essential, a source of life that these trees have evolved to capture and use with remarkable efficiency. The relationship between coast redwoods and coastal fog represents one of the most elegant examples of plant adaptation to environmental conditions found anywhere in the natural world. Understanding this relationship requires us to step back and consider the water requirements of these enormous trees. A mature coast redwood can transpire approximately 160 gallons of water per day during the growing season. Larger trees, those giants that reach 300 feet or more, can move upward of 500 gallons per day from soil to atmosphere. This water must travel from the roots, which spread shallowly through the top few feet of soil, all the way to the leaves at the crown, which may be positioned 350 feet or more above the ground. The physics of this process are extraordinary. Water molecules must be pulled upward through tiny tubes called xylem vessels, fighting against gravity for every inch of that tremendous distance. The mechanism that accomplishes this feat relies on a process called transpirational pull. When water evaporates from the stomata, the tiny pores on the surface of redwood needles, it creates a tension in the water column that extends all the way down to the roots. This tension pulls more water upward to replace what was lost, like sucking liquid through a very long straw. However, there are physical limits to how high water can be pulled this way before the water column breaks and the system fails. For most trees, heights of around 300 feet represent the practical limit before the tension becomes too great, and air bubbles, called embolisms, form in the xylem vessels, blocking further water transport. The tallest redwoods approach or exceed this theoretical limit, and they can only do so because of their unique ability to supplement root-absorbed water with water taken in directly through their needles. This process, called foliar uptake, allows redwoods to absorb moisture from fog directly through their leaves. The stomata that normally release water vapor can also absorb it when the air is saturated with moisture and droplets form on the needle surfaces. Research, conducted at the University of California, Berkeley, in 1998 by biologist Todd Dawson and his colleagues, revolutionized our understanding of how redwoods use fog. By analyzing the isotopic composition of water in different parts of the trees, they demonstrated that redwoods absorb substantial amounts of water directly through their foliage, supplementing what they draw from the soil. This discovery explained how redwoods can maintain such tall heights despite the physical limitations of transpirational pull. During the summer months, when rainfall essentially ceases along the California coast, fog becomes the primary source of moisture for redwoods. Studies estimate that up to 40% of the annual water budget for coast redwoods comes from fog, with that percentage increasing to more than 50% during the dry season. For the trees growing near the coast, where fog is most frequent and dense, this percentage can be even higher. The fog arrives with remarkable regularity during summer, typically forming offshore in the afternoon as warm air over the land rises and draws in the cooler, moist air over the ocean. As this marine air moves inland and encounters the cooler forest canopy, it condenses into the characteristic gray mist that blankets the redwood forests. The redwoods themselves contribute to the formation and maintenance of this fog. Large trees can transpire hundreds of gallons of water per day into the air, increasing the humidity of the forest atmosphere. This transpired moisture can contribute to fog formation, creating a positive feedback loop where the trees help generate the fog that sustains them. Additionally, redwoods release organic compounds called terpenes from their needles. These terpenes can act as condensation nuclei, tiny particles around which water droplets form, promoting the development of fog and low clouds. The forest, in effect, partially creates its own climate, engineering conditions that favor the tree's survival. The process of fog drip provides an additional benefit beyond the water absorbed directly through needles. Redwood needles are extraordinarily efficient at capturing fog droplets from the air. The needles are arranged in flat sprays along the branches, creating a large surface area that intercepts fog as it moves horizontally through the forest. When fog droplets collide with the needles, they coalesce into larger drops that eventually become heavy enough to fall to the forest floor. This fog drip can be so significant that it sounds like rain, creating puddles on the forest floor even though no rain has fallen from the sky. The amount of water delivered to the forest floor through fog drip varies greatly depending on position within the forest. Trees at the windward edge of a forest, where fog first encounters the canopy, intercept much more moisture than trees deep in the interior. Studies have shown that fog drip can decline exponentially from the forest edge, inward. Near the windward edge, fog drip during the summer months can deliver as much water to the soil as a light rain shower. This moisture is crucial for the understory of plants, ferns, shrubs, and young trees that carpet the forest floor. Many of these species rely on fog drip to survive the summer drought, as their roots cannot access the deeper soil moisture that sustains the large redwoods. The temperature moderation provided by fog is equally important. Fog dramatically reduces the amount of solar radiation reaching the forest floor and reduces air temperature by 10 to 15 degrees Fahrenheit compared to nearby areas outside the fog belt. This cooling effect reduces the rate of evapotranspiration from soil and plants, helping to conserve moisture. The high humidity of foggy air also means that plants lose less water through their leaves, because the vapor pressure gradient between the leaf interior and the outside air is reduced. In essence, fog creates a cool, moist microclimate that allows the forest ecosystem to remain active and productive during months when other California vegetation systems enter dormancy due to drought. Recent research has raised concerns about the future of this crucial fog-redwood relationship. Several studies have documented a decline in the frequency and density of coastal fog along the California coast over the past 50 years. This decline appears to be linked to changes in ocean temperatures and atmospheric circulation patterns associated with climate change. Warmer ocean temperatures reduce the formation of fog, and shifts in wind patterns alter where and when fog moves inland. If fog continues to decline, redwoods will face increased water stress during the summer months, potentially leading to reduced growth rates, increased mortality, and a contraction of the species range toward areas where fog remains more reliable. The impact of declining fog extends beyond the redwoods themselves to the entire forest ecosystem. Understory plants that depend on fog drip may die back or disappear entirely. Stream flows, which are maintained in part by fog drip, and the reduced evapotranspiration in foggy forests may decline, affecting salmon and other aquatic species. The temperature buffering provided by fog may be lost, causing the forest to become warmer and drier, more vulnerable to catastrophic fire, and less suitable for many of the specialized species that currently inhabit it. The marriage between fog and forest, so vital to the redwood ecosystem, faces an uncertain future in a changing climate. As you drift deeper into rest, imagine yourself sitting quietly on the forest floor of a redwood grove on a summer afternoon. The air is cool and still. Gray mist moves through the trees like a living thing, silent and soft. Droplets condense on your skin, dampening your clothes with their touch. Above you, invisible in the fog, the crowns of ancient trees drink this moisture through their needles, supplementing the water they draw from the earth below. The gentle plinking of fog drip on leaves creates a peaceful rhythm, almost like a lullaby. The forest breathes around you, transpiring moisture into the air, capturing it back from the fog, cycling water in an endless loop that has sustained these trees for millennia. let this image carry you gently towards sleep, secure in the cool, moist embrace of the redwood forest. Ancient origins and evolutionary journey. To understand the coast redwood fully, we must journey backward through time, not just centuries or millennia, but millions of years, back to an era when the Earth looked dramatically different from the planet we know today. The story of Sequoia sempervirens is a story of deep time, of survival through countless environmental changes, of adaptation and persistence across geological epochs that saw the rise of mountains, the opening of oceans, and the coming and going of ice ages. The earliest fossil evidence of trees related to modern redwoods dates to the Jurassic period, more than 200 million years ago. During this time, dinosaurs dominated the land, and the configuration of the continents bore little resemblance to today's map. The climate was generally warmer and more humid than at present, and forests of conifers, cycads, and ferns covered large portions of the landscape. Among these ancient forests grew the ancestors of redwoods, trees that would prove remarkably successful and persistent, spreading across much of the northern hemisphere. Throughout the Cretaceous period, which followed the Jurassic, redwood relatives flourished and diversified. Fossil remains from this era have been found in what is now the Arctic Circle, Europe, Asia, and across North America. These ancient redwoods inhabited temperate and even subtropical forests, thriving in climates that were milder and more equitable than those of the modern world, without the extreme seasonal variations and ice caps that characterize the present day. The trees grew alongside flowering plants, which were just beginning their evolutionary radiation during the Cretaceous, and they coexisted with the last of the dinosaurs until the mass extinction event that marked the end of that era. The family to which redwoods belong, now classified as a subfamily called Sequoiae within the cypress family Cupressaceae, once contained many genera and species. Today, only 3 species remain: Sequoia sempervirens, the coast redwood; Sequoia dendron giganteum, the giant sequoia of the Sierra Nevada; and Metasequoia glyptostroboides, the dawn redwood of central China. These 3 surviving species represent the last remnants of what was once a much more diverse and widespread group of trees. Each has retreated to a specific refuge where environmental conditions continue to support its particular ecological requirements. The evolutionary relationships among these 3 surviving species have puzzled botanists for decades. They share many characteristics, including resistance to fire and decay, great longevity, and impressive size. Yet they also show distinct differences in their ecology, appearance, and genetic makeup. The dawn redwood is deciduous, dropping its needles each autumn, while both the coast redwood and giant sequoia are evergreen. The giant sequoia grows in mixed conifer forests at higher elevations in the Sierra Nevada, where winter snow is common, while the coast redwood occupies the fog belt at lower elevations near the Pacific coast. Recent genetic research has revealed something unusual about the coast redwood. It is hexaploid, meaning it has 6 sets of chromosomes rather than the 2 sets typical of most organisms, or the four sets seen in some polyploid species. This hexaploidy is rare among gymnosperms, the group of seed plants that includes conifers. The origin of this unusual genetic condition has been the subject of considerable study and debate. One hypothesis suggests that the coast redwood arose through a process called allopolyploidy, in which two different species hybridized, and their offspring retained the chromosomes from both parents rather than losing half of each parent's genetic material during reproduction. According to this theory, the coast redwood might be the result of an ancient hybridization event between ancestors of the dawn redwood and the giant sequoia, or between dawn redwood relatives and some other now extinct species of sequoia. Evidence supporting this idea comes from studies of specific genes in the three surviving redwood species. When researchers analyzed two nuclear genes called LFY and NLY, they found that the phylogenetic trees created from each gene placed coast redwood in different positions. The LFY gene suggested coast redwood was more closely related to dawn redwood, while the NLY gene suggested a closer relationship with giant sequoia. This conflicting signal is exactly what one would expect from a hybrid, species that inherited different genes from different parental lineages. The long evolutionary history of the redwood lineage makes it difficult to determine with certainty when and how the coast redwood originated. The fossil record, though rich in some respects, remains incomplete, and the genetic signatures of ancient hybridization events can become obscured over millions of years of subsequent evolution. What is clear is that the coast redwood represents a unique evolutionary solution, a tree that has combined characteristics from different ancestral lineages to create something adapted to the very specific conditions of the foggy Northern California coast. During the Tertiary period, which spanned from about 66 million years ago to about 2.6 million years ago, redwood relatives remained widespread and diverse. Fossil redwood stumps, leaves, and cones have been found throughout the Northern Hemisphere, indicating that these trees were components of temperate forests across a broad range of latitudes and longitudes. However, as the Earth's climate began to cool during the late Tertiary and into the Quaternary, particularly with the onset of repeated glaciations about 2.6 million years ago, the range of redwoods contracted dramatically. Ice ages proved particularly harsh for trees adapted to mild, moist climates. As glaciers advanced southward from the poles during each glacial period, they scraped away forests and rendered vast areas uninhabitable. In Europe and much of Asia, mountain ranges running east-west blocked the southward migration of many tree species, contributing to widespread extinctions. Only in certain refugia, areas that remained ice-free and climatically suitable, could temperature-sensitive species survive. The coast redwood's current range in coastal California represents such a refugium, a place where the combination of latitude, proximity to the ocean, and topography created conditions mild enough for the trees to persist through the ice ages. The fossil redwood bark found in the La Brea tar pits, dated to between 25,000 and 40,000 years ago, provides a glimpse of the coast redwood's distribution during the last glacial maximum. At that time, sea levels were much lower because so much water was locked up in continental ice sheets, and the coastline of California extended farther west than it does today. The climate was cooler and perhaps wetter, allowing redwoods to grow farther south than their current range. As the Ice Age ended and the climate warmed, sea levels rose, the coastline retreated eastward, and the southern range limit of the redwoods shifted northward to its present position. Throughout this long evolutionary journey, certain characteristics have remained remarkably consistent in redwood lineages. The extraordinary resistance to decay thanks to tannins in the wood, the thick, fire-resistant bark, the ability to sprout from stumps and burls, and the capacity for great size and longevity. These traits have allowed redwoods to persist through environmental challenges that eliminated many other tree species. Fire, in particular, has been a constant presence in California forests for millions of years, shaped by the Mediterranean climate with its dry summers. Trees that could survive fire had a tremendous advantage, and the redwood's thick bark and sprouting ability made them champions of persistence in fire-prone landscapes. The coast redwood's ability to resprout after being damaged, whether by fire, flood, wind throw, or even logging, sets it apart from many other conifers and has been crucial to its survival. This trait, inherited from ancient ancestors and refined over millions of years, allows a redwood grove to recover from catastrophic disturbance without requiring new seedlings to establish from seed. The burls that form at the base of redwood trunks contain thousands of dormant buds, each capable of producing a new shoot if the main trunk is killed or severely damaged. This resprouting ability is one reason that authors of recent scientific papers have suggested that many southern redwood forests might have lost their redwood component long ago were it not for this remarkable capacity to regenerate after fire. As we contemplate this vast sweep of time, this journey from the age of dinosaurs to the present day, we can appreciate the coast redwood as a living link to Earth's distant past. These trees carry within their genes the accumulated adaptations of hundreds of millions of years of evolution. They are survivors, specialists, refined by time to occupy a particular ecological niche with extraordinary effectiveness. And, as you drift now toward deeper sleep, you can imagine the long, slow unfolding of this evolutionary story. The countless generations of trees that preceded those standing today. The patient persistence through ice and fire, through climate shifts and continental drift, through the entire long arc of deep time that brought these giants to this narrow strip of coast where they continue to grow, majestic and enduring. Life cycle and reproduction. The life cycle of a coast redwood unfolds on a timescale that dwarfs human experience, yet it begins with structures so small you could hold dozens in the palm of your hand. Understanding how these trees reproduce, grow, and maintain their populations reveals both the remarkable resilience of the species and certain vulnerabilities that make its future uncertain in a rapidly changing world. Coast redwoods are monoecious, meaning that each individual tree produces both male and female reproductive structures on separate branches of the same tree. The male cones are tiny, inconspicuous structures, yellowish-brown in color, and only about 1/5 of an inch long. They appear in late winter, clustering near the tips of branches, and release clouds of pollen during late winter and early spring. The pollen grains are minute and lightweight, designed to drift on the wind to other branches of the same tree or to neighboring trees. Because redwoods rely on wind pollination rather than animal pollinators, they produce enormous quantities of pollen to increase the chances that at least some grains will find their way to female cones. The female cones are somewhat larger, but still surprisingly small for such enormous trees, typically measuring about 1 inch in length. They develop on different branches from the male cones and consist of thick, woody scales arranged in a spiral pattern. After pollination, which occurs in early spring, the female cones mature through the summer and into fall. By late fall, usually in October or November, the cones open and release their seeds. Each cone can produce dozens of seeds, and a large tree may produce thousands or even millions of seeds in a single season. However, the seeds of coast redwoods face severe challenges when it comes to germination and establishment. Redwood seeds are remarkably small and lightweight, with tiny wings that allow them to disperse on the wind. They contain very little stored energy in the form of nutrients, which means that seedlings must establish quickly after germination or they will starve. The seeds require specific conditions to germinate successfully: bare mineral soil, adequate moisture, and sufficient light. These conditions are actually quite rare in mature redwood forests, where the forest floor is typically covered with a thick layer of needles, leaves, and other organic debris that prevents seeds from reaching mineral soil. Additionally, the dense canopy of old-growth forests blocks most sunlight from reaching the ground, creating shade too deep for redwood seedlings to grow even if they do manage to germinate. As a result, successful sexual reproduction in redwoods is relatively uncommon. Studies have shown that very few redwood seeds germinate under natural conditions, and even fewer seedlings survive their first year. Those that do establish typically do so in disturbed areas where fire, flooding, wind throw, or other disturbances have cleared the forest floor and created gaps in the canopy that allow light to reach the ground. Even with these favorable conditions, redwood seedlings grow slowly during their first few years, vulnerable to drought, frost, competition from other plants, and herbivory by deer and other animals. Despite these challenges with seed reproduction, coast redwoods maintain robust populations through an alternative reproductive strategy that makes them nearly unique among conifers: vegetative reproduction, or cloning. This process allows redwoods to produce new trees without seeds, creating genetic copies of the parent tree that can eventually become independent individuals. The primary mechanism of vegetative reproduction in redwoods involves burls, those peculiar lumpy growths that form at the base of many redwood trunks. These burls are masses of dormant bud tissue, containing thousands of buds that remain inactive under normal conditions. The burls can persist for the entire life of the tree, growing slowly larger as the tree ages. If the main trunk is killed or severely damaged by fire, flood, wind, disease, or logging. The stress signals trigger the dormant buds in the burls to activate and begin growing. Within weeks, hundreds or even thousands of new shoots can sprout from a single burl, creating a dense cluster of new growth. These sprouts have an enormous advantage over seedlings. They tap into the established root system of the parent tree. While the parent trunk may be dead or dying, its roots typically remain alive and functional, providing water, nutrients, and stored energy to the new sprouts. This allows the sprouts to grow remarkably fast, sometimes adding several feet of height in a single growing season. Over time, the sprouts compete with one another. Some die while others come to dominate, eventually forming a circle of new trunks around the location where the parent tree once stood. These rings of trees, sometimes called fairy rings or cathedral rings, are a distinctive feature of redwood forests, marking places where ancient trees once grew. Remarkably, the trees in these fairy rings remain connected through their roots, at least initially. They share the original root system of the parent tree, and in some cases the roots of the sibling trees fuse together as they grow, creating a permanently interconnected grove of genetically identical individuals. This interconnection allows the trees to share resources, supporting one another through periods of stress. If one tree in the ring becomes damaged or dies, the others can potentially keep its root system alive, even regenerating new sprouts from that root system years or decades later. The ability to sprout from burls and stumps gives redwoods extraordinary resilience in the face of disturbance. After the extensive logging that occurred in the 19th and early 20th centuries, many cutover areas regenerated naturally through sprouting, creating the young, dense stands of redwoods that cover much of the commercial timberland in the Redwood region today. These second-growth forests, while not as ecologically complex or impressive as old-growth forests, demonstrate the redwood's capacity for recovery. In some areas, trees that were cut multiple times over the course of a century or more continue to resprout, producing new generations of stems from ancient root systems that may be thousands of years old. Young redwood trees can grow with impressive speed under favorable conditions. When sunlight, water, and nutrients are abundant, redwood saplings can add more than a foot of vertical growth per year. In particularly good sites, growth rates of 2 to 3 feet per year have been documented during the tree's juvenile period. This rapid growth allows redwoods to quickly occupy canopy gaps and compete effectively with other tree species. However, this fast early growth comes at a cost. Young trees invest most of their energy in height growth rather than in developing thick bark or extensive root systems, making them more vulnerable to fire, drought, and wind than mature trees. As redwoods age, their growth pattern shifts. Height growth slows as the trees approach their maximum height, constrained by the physical limits of water transport and structural mechanics. However, diameter growth continues throughout the tree's life, albeit at varying rates depending on environmental conditions. Remarkably, the largest and oldest redwoods continue to add significant biomass each year, often growing faster in terms of total mass than much younger trees. This continued growth means that old-growth redwoods accumulate enormous amounts of carbon in their wood, making them valuable for climate regulation even at advanced ages. Redwoods reach sexual maturity relatively early for such long-lived trees, typically beginning to produce cones at around 10 years of age if growing in favorable conditions. However, seed production increases dramatically with tree size, and the largest trees produce vastly more seeds than younger, smaller individuals. This size-dependent reproduction is common in trees but has particular implications for redwoods. Given that logging and other disturbances have removed most of the largest individuals from the landscape. The remaining old-growth trees serve as important seed sources for the species, producing the genetic diversity necessary for adaptation to changing environmental conditions. The combination of sexual and asexual reproduction gives coast redwoods a dual strategy for persistence. Sexual reproduction through seeds allows for genetic diversity, mixing genes from different parents and creating variation that can respond to environmental change through natural selection. Asexual reproduction through sprouting allows for rapid recovery from disturbance and the persistence of successful genotypes in favorable locations. Together, these strategies have enabled redwoods to survive through millions of years of environmental change and to recover from extensive logging in the past century and a half. As you drift deeper into the peaceful state that precedes sleep, imagine a redwood cone opening on a cool autumn day, releasing its tiny seeds to drift on the breeze. Most will fall where they cannot germinate. Most of those that do sprout will perish before their first birthday. But perhaps one or two will find the perfect combination of bare soil, moisture, and light, and will send down tiny roots while pushing a delicate shoot toward the sky. Or imagine instead a massive trunk toppled by wind after standing for 1,500 years, its burl already awakening from ancient slumber, preparing to send up a ring of new shoots that will carry forward the genetic legacy of their parent, growing toward the same fog-filtered light that nourished their ancestor. In these images of beginning and renewal, the redwoods continue their slow dance of reproduction, ensuring that there will be new generations to carry the forest forward into an uncertain future. Sky Gardens, the canopy ecosystem. If you were to climb one of the tallest coast redwoods, ascending hand over hand up a rope secured in its crown 300 feet above the forest floor, you would pass through distinct ecological zones as different from one another as the communities of organisms found at different elevations on a mountain. Near the ground, the forest feels quiet and shaded, the air cool and still. As you climb higher, light increases, temperature fluctuates more dramatically, and wind becomes a constant presence. And if you climb all the way to the canopy of an old-growth redwood, you would discover something astonishing, an entirely different world, a vertical wilderness where complete ecosystems exist hundreds of feet above the earth, sustained by moisture captured from fog and soil accumulated over centuries in the branches of the trees themselves. This canopy ecosystem remained largely unknown to science until the mid-1990s, when arborist and researcher Stephen Sillett and his students at what is now Cal Poly Humboldt began systematically climbing and studying old-growth redwoods. What they discovered revolutionized our understanding of redwood forest ecology and revealed that these forests harbor far more biodiversity than anyone had previously imagined. The foundation of the canopy ecosystem is the soil that accumulates on redwood branches. This might seem impossible at first. how can soil exist hundreds of feet in the air with no connection to the ground? The process occurs slowly, over centuries. Redwood needles constantly shed from the inner portions of branches as new growth appears at the tips. These shed needles, along with pieces of bark, lichen fragments, small branches, pollen, dust particles, and even bird feces, collect in the crotches where large branches meet the trunk, and in slight depressions on top of broad horizontal branches. Over decades and centuries, this organic material breaks down into a dark, rich humus that has all the characteristics of soil. Scientists studying this canopy soil have found it contains the same microorganisms, fungi, and invertebrates found in soil on the forest floor. Bacteria, actinomyces, nematodes, mites, and springtails. The remarkable thing about this canopy soil is its capacity to hold water. The soil acts like a sponge, absorbing moisture from fog drip and rain, then releasing it slowly over time. Measurements of canopy soil mats in old-growth redwoods have found that some can hold nearly 5,000 gallons of water per acre per year. This stored water creates a more stable moisture regime in the canopy than would exist if the branches were bare, buffering temperature extremes and reducing water stress on the plants and animals living aloft. And there are plants living in the redwood canopy, lots of them. The keystone species in this aerial ecosystem is a fern called Polypodium sculeri, commonly known as leather leaf fern. These ferns establish from spores that drift up into the canopy on air currents. Once established in accumulated soil on a branch, the ferns spread by rhizomes, gradually colonizing more and more of the branch surface. Over centuries, the ferns and the soil in which they grow can form enormous mats, some measured at 8 feet wide with soil layers more than a meter deep and thousands of individual fern fronds. The oldest and largest of these fern mats have been compared to cars in size, massive gardens suspended in the air, tens of thousands of pounds of living and dead material supported by branches that may themselves be several feet in diameter. But ferns are not the only plants found in the redwood canopy. Researchers have documented huckleberry bushes growing on redwood branches, complete with berries that provide food for birds and small mammals. Moss and lichens cover branch surfaces in carpets of green and gray. Sitka spruce, hemlock, and even small redwood trees have been found growing as epiphytes high in the crowns of old redwoods, their roots extending into the accumulated canopy soil rather than reaching the ground. In one remarkable case, researchers documented a Sitka spruce growing in a redwood crown that was itself over 100 feet tall and several feet in diameter. An entire tree growing on a branch 300 feet above the forest floor. This canopy garden supports a diverse community of animals. The most famous resident is the wandering salamander, a small amphibian that lives its entire life in the redwood canopy, never descending to the ground. This was surprising when first discovered because salamanders, being amphibians with moist, permeable skin, were thought to require access to water and could not survive in the relatively dry conditions of a tree canopy. However, wandering salamanders have adapted to this aerial life, hunting small invertebrates among the fern mats and branches, absorbing moisture from fog through their skin, and laying their eggs in moist crevices in the bark or soil. The population of wandering salamanders living in a single old-growth redwood can number in the hundreds or even thousands of individuals. Tree voles, which are small rodents related to lemmings, also live in the redwood canopy, building nests from chewed redwood needles and rarely, if ever, descending to the ground. Multiple species of bats roost in cavities and beneath loose bark in the upper reaches of the trees. Numerous bird species nest in the canopy, including the marbled murrelet, a seabird listed as federally threatened, which feeds in the ocean but flies inland to nest on large branches of old-growth redwoods and other conifers. The northern spotted owl, also federally threatened, frequently hunts and nests in old-growth redwood forests, taking advantage of the complex three-dimensional structure and abundant prey base. Countless species of invertebrates live in the canopy soil and on the branches, bark, and foliage of the trees. Spiders weave webs between branches, catching insects that rise from the forest floor or emerge from the canopy plants. Beetles, flies, wasps, ants, and many other insects find food and shelter among the ferns and flowers. Mites and springtails process decomposing organic matter in the canopy soil, performing the same ecological functions they would perform in terrestrial soil, just doing so hundreds of feet in the air. This invertebrate community serves as the food base for the salamanders, tree voles, and insectivorous birds that characterize the canopy ecosystem. Not every redwood hosts this elaborate canopy ecosystem. Research has shown that only the largest and oldest trees, typically those exceeding 1,100 years of age, develop substantial canopy gardens. These elder trees, as researchers have begun calling them, play an outsized role in supporting biodiversity, despite being relatively rare on the landscape. In a recent range-wide analysis that examined 235 redwood trees, only 34 had ferns and other vascular plants living in their crowns, and the average age of these trees exceeded 1,100 years. This finding has important conservation implications, suggesting that protecting and promoting the development of elder trees should be a priority for maintaining the full ecological richness of redwood forests. Unfortunately, elder trees are becoming increasingly scarce. The extensive logging of the 19th and 20th centuries removed most of the largest old-growth trees, and current forest management practices typically harvest trees long before they reach the age and size necessary to develop complex canopy ecosystems. In response to this concern, researchers have proposed designating certain robust trees in regenerating forests as potential elder trees, or PETs. These designated trees would be protected from future harvest, allowed to grow and age over centuries or millennia, eventually developing the structural complexity necessary to support canopy biodiversity. For redwoods, whose lifespan can exceed 2,000 years, this represents a conservation strategy that spans not just human generations but entire civilizations. efforts are underway to restore canopy ecosystems in younger forests through active intervention. Stephen Sillett and research associate Marie Antoine, working with the Pacific Forest Trust and other partners, have been transplanting fern mats from old-growth forests into the canopies of younger second-growth redwoods. The process involves climbing both the donor tree and the recipient tree, carefully removing a section of fern mat along with its associated soil, transporting it horizontally through the forest, and securing it to a suitable branch on the younger tree. So far, many of these transplants have been successful, with the ferns surviving, growing, and even spreading to colonize new branches. While this work is labor-intensive and limited in scale, it demonstrates that restoration of canopy ecosystems is possible and offers hope that the biodiversity of old-growth forests might eventually be recreated in carefully managed younger stands. As your mind drifts now toward sleep, imagine yourself standing on a branch as wide as a sidewalk, 300 feet above the forest floor. Around you, ferns spread in a green carpet moist with fog. A wandering salamander, no longer than your finger, emerges from beneath a fern frond and regards you with black eyes before disappearing again into the miniature forest. Wind sways the crown gently, and you can see other redwoods rising around you, their tops also hidden in gray mist. Far below, barely visible through layers of branches, the forest floor appears as a dim green shadow. This is the sky, garden, the secret ecosystem that exists in a realm few humans ever visit, sustained by fog and time, a world within a world. Floating in the air above the quiet earth, creatures of the vertical world. The coast redwood forest is not merely a collection of trees. It is a complex, three-dimensional habitat that supports one of the most diverse arrays of wildlife found anywhere in North America. From the damp, fern-covered forest floor to the fog-wrapped canopy hundreds of feet overhead, nearly every available niche harbors specialized creatures that have adapted to life in this unique ecosystem. Understanding the animals that call the redwood forest home reveals how the presence of these giant trees shapes and sustains a remarkable web of life. On the forest floor, beneath the towering columns of redwood trunks, the most conspicuous residents are perhaps the banana slugs. These large, yellow gastropods, some reaching lengths of 10 inches, glide slowly across the needle-covered ground, feeding on fungi, decaying plant matter, and occasional fresh vegetation. Their bright yellow color, sometimes marked with black spots, makes them easy to spot against the brown forest floor, though this conspicuousness serves a purpose. The slugs produce mucus containing chemicals that taste terrible to potential predators, and their bright coloration advertises this unpalatability. Banana slugs play a crucial role in nutrient cycling, breaking down dead plant material and spreading spores of mycorrhizal fungi through their feces, helping to maintain the symbiotic relationships between trees and fungi that are essential for forest health. The damp conditions of the forest floor also support numerous salamanders. The Pacific giant salamander, North America's largest terrestrial salamander, can reach lengths of over a foot and hunts smaller salamanders, insects, small rodents, and even snakes. These impressive amphibians are entirely terrestrial as adults, though they lay their eggs in streams and their larvae are aquatic. Red-bellied newts, another amphibian common in redwood forests, spend much of their adult lives on land but return to streams to breed. During the breeding season, males develop more brilliant coloration and compete for access to females in elaborate underwater displays. Moving up from the forest floor to the understory and mid-canopy, we encounter a variety of mammals that depend on the redwood forest for food and shelter. Black-tailed deer, a subspecies of mule deer, browse on understory plants and the foliage of young trees. Roosevelt elk, much larger than the deer and named after President Theodore Roosevelt, also inhabit redwood forests, particularly in the northern part of the range in Humboldt and Del Norte counties. These massive animals, with bulls weighing up to 1,200 pounds and carrying impressive antlers, feed on grasses, forbs, and browse in forest openings and edges. Both deer and elk populations in redwood forests have fluctuated over time, influenced by hunting, habitat change, and the presence of predators. The primary large predator in redwood forests is the mountain lion, also called cougar or puma. These solitary cats hunt deer and elk, patrolling territories that can span many square miles. While mountain lions are rarely seen due to their secretive nature and primarily nocturnal habits, they play an important role in shaping prey populations and maintaining ecological balance. Black bears also inhabit redwood forests, though they are omnivores rather than specialized predators. They feed on berries, nuts, insects, roots, and occasional carrion, supplementing their diet with salmon during spawning runs in redwood forest streams. Unfortunately, black bears sometimes damage young redwoods by stripping bark to access the sweet cambium layer beneath, creating wounds that can allow decay fungi to enter the tree. Medium-sized carnivores include bobcats, which hunt small mammals, birds, and occasionally a deer. Pacific fishers, rare members of the weasel family that prey on squirrels, wood rats, and other small animals. And pine martens, another mustelid that hunts in trees as well as on the ground. These predators help control populations of rodents and other small mammals, preventing any single species from becoming too abundant and maintaining diversity in the small mammal community. The small mammals of the redwood forest are diverse and often specialized. Douglas squirrels, also called chickarees, are noisy territorial rodents that feed primarily on conifer seeds, including redwood seeds when they are available. They create large caches of seeds and cones, called middens, which they defend vigorously against other squirrels. Flying squirrels, both northern and southern species, glide between trees at night using membranes of skin stretched between their front and hind legs, feeding on fungi, lichen, nuts, and insects. Wood rats build large stick nests in hollow logs and beneath fallen trees, and while they feed primarily on plant matter, their habit of gnawing bark from young trees makes them occasional pests in restoration sites and plantations. The bird community of redwood forests is remarkably rich, with species occupying every level from the ground to the highest canopy. The forest floor hosts varied thrushes, winter wrens, and Swainson's thrushes, birds that forage in the leaf litter for insects and other invertebrates. Deeper into the forest understory, Pacific slope flycatchers and Wilson's warblers flit through the foliage, gleaning insects from leaves and catching flying insects in midair. Mid-canopy specialists include brown creepers, which spiral up tree trunks probing bark crevices for insect eggs and larvae, and red-breasted nuthatches, which move head-first down tree trunks while searching for food. The high canopy hosts its own distinctive bird community. Marbled morellets, as mentioned earlier, are small seabirds related to puffins and auks that feed on small fish and crustaceans in the ocean but nest on large branches of old-growth conifers, including redwoods. These birds are federally threatened due to habitat loss and disturbance, and their conservation depends heavily on protecting the remaining old-growth forests where they breed. Northern spotted owls, another threatened species, nest in cavities and on broken-topped trees in old-growth forests, preying on flying squirrels, wood rats, and other small mammals that they hunt at night. Pileated woodpeckers, crow-sized birds with bright red crests, excavate large rectangular cavities in trees as they search for carpenter ants and wood-boring beetle larvae. Their abandoned cavities provide nesting sites for many other species, including owls, bats, flying squirrels, and smaller birds. Raptors that hunt in or near redwood forests include red-tailed hawks, which soar above the forest canopy, watching for prey in openings and at forest edges. Coopers, hawks, which specialize in catching other birds in flight through the forest. And peregrine falcons, which nest on coastal cliffs but hunt over redwood forests and adjacent areas, diving at incredible speeds to strike prey birds in mid-air. The streams that flow through redwood forests support their own specialized communities. Coho salmon, steelhead trout, and coastal cutthroat trout spawn in cool, clear streams beneath the redwood canopy. These fish require clean gravel for spawning, cold water temperatures, and pools with adequate cover from predators. The redwood forest contributes to stream health in multiple ways. By shading streams and keeping water temperatures cool, by stabilizing stream banks with root systems, by adding large woody debris that creates pools and cover, and by intercepting fog and rain that maintains stream flow during summer months. Unfortunately, many streams in the redwood region have been degraded by past logging, road building, and other land use changes, and the populations of native salmon and trout have declined substantially. Restoration efforts aim to improve stream habitat by removing barriers to fish passage, adding large wood to streams, and protecting riparian vegetation. Aquatic insects form the food base for fish in redwood streams. Mayfly nymphs, stonefly nymphs, caddisfly larvae, and numerous other invertebrates graze on algae and detritus, or prey on other invertebrates in the stream. These insects emerge as adults and fly into the forest, where they are preyed upon by birds, bats, and other insectivores, creating a flow of nutrients from the aquatic ecosystem into the terrestrial forest. Conversely, terrestrial insects that fall into streams provide food for fish, creating reciprocal linkages between land and water. Bats deserve special mention as important but often overlooked members of the redwood forest fauna. At least a dozen species of bats occur in redwood forests, roosting in tree cavities, beneath exfoliating bark, in the crowns of old-growth trees, and in buildings. These nocturnal mammals consume enormous quantities of insects each night, providing valuable pest control services. They navigate and hunt using echolocation, emitting high-frequency calls and listening for the echoes that return from obstacles and prey. The long-eared myotis, hoary bat, silver-haired bat, and big brown bat are among the species commonly found in redwood forests. Several bat species are of conservation concern due to declining populations caused by habitat loss and white nose syndrome, a fungal disease that has devastated bat populations in eastern North America and is gradually spreading westward. Even the seemingly empty air of the redwood forest teems with life. Countless flying insects move through the space between the ground and the canopy. Beetles, flies, wasps, butterflies, moths, craneflies, midges, and many others. These insects serve as pollinators for understory plants, decomposers of organic matter, prey for insectivorous animals, and sometimes as herbivores that influence plant community composition. The vertical structure of the redwood forest creates distinct layers of insect activity, with different species preferring different heights and microclimates within the forest. As you drift towards sleep, imagine yourself sitting quietly on the forest floor at dusk, watching the transitions as day creatures retire and night creatures emerge. A deer steps delicately through the ferns, pausing to listen before moving on. Banana slugs leave gleaming trails across fallen logs. From high above comes the piercing cry of a red-tailed hawk, circling above the forest. As darkness deepens, bats appear, darting through the spaces between trees, their clicks and chirps inaudible to your ears but painting the forest in echoes and sound pictures that guide their flight. An owl calls softly from somewhere deep in the trees, and all around, unseen, the countless small creatures of the redwood forest go about their business, eating and being eaten, reproducing and dying, each playing its part in the grand web of life that the presence of these giant trees makes possible. The forest is never silent, never empty, but always alive with the gentle movements of its inhabitants. Masters of survival. In a landscape shaped by fire, flood, drought, and wind, where challenges to survival arise in countless forms across countless years, the coast redwood has proven itself one of nature's great survivors. The adaptations that allow these trees to persist through the centuries and millennia reveal both remarkable biological engineering and the power of evolutionary refinement. To understand how redwoods survive is to understand how life itself persists in the face of constant challenge. Fire has shaped California forests for millions of years, long before humans arrived. The Mediterranean climate, with its wet winters and dry summers, creates conditions ideal for wildfire. vegetation grows lush during the rainy season, then dries out during the summer drought, becoming fuel waiting for an ignition source. Lightning strikes from dry thunderstorms have ignited fires throughout prehistory and history, and prior to European settlement, Native American peoples also used fire as a management tool to shape vegetation patterns. In such a fire-prone landscape, trees that could survive burning gained an enormous advantage. The coast redwood's fire resistance is legendary and stems primarily from the characteristics of its bark. On mature trees, the bark grows astonishingly thick, reaching 12 inches or more on the largest old-growth specimens. This bark is soft and fibrous, with a texture somewhat like cork or thick insulation. Unlike the bark of many pines and firs, which contains flammable resins and pitch, redwood bark is essentially non-flammable. It chars when exposed to heat but does not readily sustain combustion. The thickness and composition of the bark act as insulation, protecting the living cambium layer beneath from the heat of passing flames. Additionally, redwood bark and heartwood contain high concentrations of tannins, bitter chemical compounds that serve multiple protective functions. Tannins make the tissue unpalatable to wood-boring insects and discourage herbivores from feeding on bark and foliage. They also have antimicrobial properties that inhibit the growth of decay fungi and bacteria that could otherwise attack damaged wood. This chemical defense, combined with physical armor, allows redwoods to survive injuries that would doom most other trees. When fire does burn through a redwood forest, it typically behaves as a relatively low-intensity surface fire, burning through the accumulated needles, leaves, and woody debris on the forest floor, but not reaching the crowns of the tall trees. Such surface fires can actually benefit redwoods by clearing away competing vegetation, creating bare mineral soil where redwood seeds can germinate, recycling nutrients, and maintaining forest health. The trees themselves show evidence of repeated fires in the form of fire scars, dark, charred areas where flames burned through the bark on one side of the trunk. Some old-growth redwoods bear dozens of fire scars accumulated over centuries, each representing a time when fire passed through the grove, but the tree survived. However, young redwoods lack the thick protective bark of their elders and are much more vulnerable to fire. Saplings and trees less than 20 years old can be killed outright by even relatively cool fires. Yet even this mortality is not necessarily catastrophic for redwood populations because of their ability to resprout from burls and root crowns. When a young redwood is killed by fire, its burl typically survives because it is protected by a thick mound of soil and bark at the base of the tree. After the fire passes, the burl rapidly sends up new shoots, and within a few years, the burned area may be covered with vigorous sprouts. This ability to regenerate after fire has allowed redwoods to persist in fire-prone landscapes where many other species would gradually disappear. The resinless nature of redwood wood also contributes to the species' fire resistance. Pines, firs, and many other conifers produce sticky resins that are highly flammable and can cause trees to literally explode when heated sufficiently. Redwood wood, by contrast, is relatively resin-free, which means that when a fire burns a redwood, the tree may char and smolder, but is less likely to burst into flame or create the intense heat that would kill the tree completely. This characteristic, combined with thick bark, allows redwoods to survive fires of an intensity that would kill most other conifers. While fire is one challenge, water presents others. Redwoods need abundant moisture to survive, but too much water can also cause problems. The streams that flow through redwood valleys flood during winter storms, sometimes rising many feet above their normal channels and inundating the forest floor. These floods can erode soil, topple trees, and deposit gravel and debris. Young redwoods can be buried by sediment or washed away entirely. Mature trees are generally more stable, but even they can be undermined if flooding erodes the soil around their roots. Redwoods have evolved several adaptations to cope with periodic flooding. Their bark resists damage from debris-laden floodwaters better than the thin bark of many other species. More importantly, buried redwoods can produce new roots from their trunks when the original roots are buried too deeply by deposited sediment. Archaeological excavations at some sites have revealed multiple layers of roots at different depths, showing that trees have produced new root systems repeatedly, as sediment accumulated around them over centuries. This ability to adjust to changing soil levels allows redwoods to persist in flood-prone valleys where sediment deposition continually raises the forest floor. Drought poses the opposite challenge. Although the redwood region receives substantial rainfall during winter, summer precipitation is virtually non-existent, and without fog, redwoods would face severe water stress during the dry months. The trees' shallow, spreading root systems maximize their ability to capture soil moisture from a large area, and their ability to absorb water through their needles supplements soil moisture during foggy periods. Still, in areas where fog is less reliable or during extended droughts, redwoods may show signs of stress, including reduced growth, browning of needles, and increased susceptibility to disease. Disease and insect pests present relatively minor challenges for mature redwoods, largely thanks to the protective tannins in their wood and bark. Branch cankers caused by the fungus coronium can girdle branches and stems, particularly in plantations and areas where trees are stressed, but they rarely kill mature trees in natural forests. Heart rot fungi, including species in the genus Sequoia, can cause decay in the heartwood of old trees, creating hollow areas and potentially weakening the trunk. But the decay progresses slowly, and many hollow trees remain structurally sound and continue growing for decades or even centuries. The redwood bark beetle and the Sequoia pitch moth do inhabit redwood forests, but generally cause only minor damage and are not considered significant threats to tree survival. Wind, rather than disease or insects, represents the primary cause of natural mortality among mature coast redwoods. The combination of tall height, relatively shallow roots, and exposure to coastal storms makes redwoods vulnerable to wind throw. During severe winter storms, when strong winds combine with saturated soils that offer reduced anchoring strength, even large redwoods can topple. The interconnected root systems of redwood groves provide some protection, distributing wind stress across multiple trees, but they also create the possibility of multiple trees falling together if root systems fail. Walking through old-growth forests, one commonly sees massive fallen trunks, often several centuries old, that came down during some past storm. These fallen giants gradually decay, returning nutrients to the soil, providing habitat for countless organisms, and creating nurse logs where new trees can establish. The resilience of redwoods becomes particularly evident when we consider their response to logging. In the century and a half since intensive commercial logging began in the Redwood region, hundreds of thousands of acres of old-growth forest were cut. Yet most of these logged areas did not convert to grassland or shrubland, as happened in some other heavily logged ecosystems. Instead, the stumps of cut redwoods rapidly sprouted, producing rings of new growth that eventually developed into the dense second-growth forests that cover much of the Redwood region today. Some stumps have been cut 2, 3, or even 4 times over the past century and a half, and they continue producing new sprouts, testament to the persistence of the species and the longevity of root systems that may be thousands of years old even though the visible above-ground portions of the tree have been repeatedly harvested. This ability to regenerate after severe disturbance has given redwoods a certain level of protection against extinction. Even if all old-growth forests were destroyed, which thankfully has not occurred thanks to conservation efforts, the species would likely persist through young, regenerating stands. However, the ecosystem functions provided by old-growth forests, the biodiversity they support, and the cultural and aesthetic values they represent cannot be easily replicated in younger forests. Conservation of remaining old-growth groves therefore remains a critical priority. As your breathing slows and sleep approaches, imagine a redwood grove that has survived 1,000 winters and summers, that has endured dozens of fires, countless floods, periods of drought, and storms of wind. The bark on the oldest trees is thick and deeply furrowed, charred black on the side where fire last passed through, perhaps a century ago. The ground around them rises in gentle mounds, accumulated sediment from countless floods slowly raising the forest floor while the trees produce new roots to match. Some trees lean at slight angles, pushed by long-ago winds, but held upright by the connections with their neighbors, their roots intertwined below the ground in networks of mutual support. They are survivors, these trees, masters of persistence in a landscape that tests them constantly, but has not yet found a challenge they cannot meet. And as you drift now towards sleep, you can take comfort in their example, in the knowledge that resilience is woven into the very fabric of life, and that endurance, like the slow growth of a redwood's ring, accumulates one small victory at a time until centuries have passed and the tree still stands. Climate champions, carbon and water cycles. Beyond their aesthetic majesty and ecological complexity, coast redwoods perform functions that extend far beyond the boundaries of their forest home, influencing regional and even global environmental processes. These trees are among the most effective organisms on Earth at capturing and storing carbon, and they play crucial roles in the water cycle that extends their influence across the entire coastal region. Understanding these broader ecological services helps us appreciate why redwood conservation matters not just for the forest itself, but for the health of the planet. Carbon sequestration, the process of removing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and storing it in organic matter, has become increasingly important as human activities release unprecedented amounts of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. Plants naturally sequester carbon through photosynthesis, using energy from sunlight to convert carbon dioxide and water into sugars and other organic compounds. Trees, because of their large size and woody tissues, store particularly large amounts of carbon in their trunks, branches, and roots. But not all trees are equal in their carbon storage capacity, and coast redwoods stand out as exceptional carbon accumulators. The reason for redwoods' extraordinary carbon storage capacity relates to several factors. First, they grow to enormous size, with the largest individuals containing thousands of tons of wood. Second, they live for extremely long periods, sometimes exceeding 2,000 years, which means they accumulate carbon continuously over millennia rather than decades or centuries. Third, and perhaps most remarkably, the largest and oldest redwoods continue growing rapidly even at advanced ages. Research by Save the Redwoods League and partners has shown that old-growth redwoods often add more biomass per year than younger trees, contrary to the pattern seen in most tree species where growth rates decline with age. This means that protecting and promoting the development of large, old trees maximizes carbon sequestration. Studies have estimated that old-growth redwood forests contain more above-ground living biomass per unit area than any other forest type on Earth. The concentration of living material in some old-growth groves exceeds 2,000 tons per acre, a staggering amount of organic matter standing in a relatively small area. When carbon storage in both living trees and dead wood is considered, along with carbon in the soil, total ecosystem carbon in redwood forests can exceed 3,000 tons per acre. For comparison, tropical rainforests, often considered the champions of carbon storage, typically contain between 200 and 500 tons of carbon per acre. The durability of redwood wood also contributes to long-term carbon storage. Because of the tannins and other chemical compounds that make redwood resistant to decay, dead redwood wood persists in the environment for centuries. Fallen logs on the forest floor can remain structurally intact for hundreds of years, slowly decomposing and releasing their carbon gradually rather than quickly. Even when redwood wood is harvested and turned into lumber for buildings, fences, decks, and other products, the wood's natural resistance to decay means that carbon remains stored for many decades, or even centuries, much longer than lumber from species that decay more rapidly. The carbon storage capacity of redwood forests becomes even more significant when we consider the relatively small area they occupy. The entire natural range of coast redwoods covers only about 2 million acres, with old-growth forests occupying roughly 200,000 acres of that total. Yet this tiny fraction of Earth's land surface stores a disproportionately large amount of carbon, and protecting and expanding these forests represents one of the most efficient ways to sequester atmospheric carbon. Every old-growth redwood that is preserved continues pulling carbon from the atmosphere and locking it away in wood that may persist for millennia. Every logged area that is allowed to regenerate into mature forest creates new capacity for carbon storage that will increase over centuries as the trees grow. Climate modeling studies have begun to incorporate the carbon storage capacity of redwood forests into projections of future atmospheric carbon dioxide levels and climate change impacts. These models suggest that protecting remaining old-growth forests and allowing young forests to mature can make meaningful contributions to regional and global carbon budgets. While forest conservation alone cannot solve the climate crisis, which fundamentally requires reducing fossil fuel emissions, forests like those dominated by redwoods can buy time by slowing the rate of carbon dioxide accumulation in the atmosphere. Redwoods also influence the water cycle in ways that extend beyond the fog drip process already discussed. Large trees transpire enormous amounts of water into the atmosphere, as mentioned earlier, potentially 500 gallons or more per day for the largest individuals. This transpired water increases local humidity and can contribute to cloud and fog formation, creating feedback loops that help maintain the moist conditions the trees require. During the growing season, the collective transpiration from thousands of redwoods in a large grove can add measurable amounts of moisture to the air, influencing weather patterns downwind of the forest. The cooling effect of this transpiration should not be underestimated. When water evaporates from leaf surfaces, it absorbs heat energy from the surrounding air, a process called evaporative cooling. This is the same principle that makes sweating effective at cooling human bodies. At the scale of an entire forest, evaporative cooling from transpiration can lower air temperatures by several degrees compared to nearby non-forested areas. This cooling effect benefits not just the forest itself, but also surrounding communities, reducing the urban heat island effect and making nearby towns and cities more comfortable during warm weather. Redwoods also help regulate stream flow and maintain water quality in the watersheds they inhabit. The forest canopy intercepts rainfall, slowing its descent to the ground and reducing erosion. Root systems stabilize stream banks and hill slopes, preventing landslides and reducing sediment delivery to streams. The shade provided by streamside trees keeps water temperatures cool, which is essential for cold water fish species like salmon and trout. Fallen logs and branches from redwoods create complex habitat in streams, forming pools and riffles that fish need for spawning, rearing, and refuge. The role of redwood forests in maintaining summer stream flows deserves special attention during the dry summer months when California's Mediterranean climate provides essentially no rainfall. Many streams in unforested watersheds dry up completely or are reduced to disconnected pools. In watersheds with intact redwood forests, streams are much more likely to maintain flow throughout the summer. This perennial flow results from several factors. Fog drip adds water to the soil during summer. The cool microclimate of the forest reduces evaporation. And the high organic content of forest soils acts as a sponge that stores water and releases it gradually. These summer flows are crucial for salmon and steelhead trout, which need cold, flowing water in summer to survive the period before fall rains return. Water quality in redwood forest streams is typically excellent, with low sediment loads, cool temperatures, and high dissolved oxygen content. The forests filter and purify water naturally, and many communities in the Redwood region depend on forested watersheds for municipal water supplies. Cities and water districts have recognized the value of healthy forests for water quality and have invested in forest conservation and restoration as a cost-effective alternative to expensive water treatment infrastructure. Protecting forests becomes a strategy for protecting water supplies. Looking toward the future, the climate regulation services provided by redwood forests may become even more valuable as global temperatures rise and precipitation patterns shift. The carbon stored in these forests helps offset human emissions of greenhouse gases. The water regulation functions help buffer the impacts of drought and maintain stream flows for both human use and ecosystem health. The cooling effects of the forest provide refuge for species that cannot tolerate warming temperatures elsewhere. In a world increasingly shaped by human-induced climate change, intact redwood forests represent not just remnants of past ecosystems, but also investments in climate resilience for the future. As you imagine these vast processes, these invisible flows of carbon and water through the redwood forest, let your mind drift with the molecules on their journeys. Carbon atoms from the air are captured by needles in the canopy, transformed through photosynthesis into sugars, transported down to roots, or incorporated into new wood, locked away in the heartwood where they may remain for centuries or millennia. Water molecules absorbed by roots travel upward through xylem vessels, move out through needles into the air, rise in warm updrafts, condense into fog droplets that drift back to the forest, are captured by needles again, and drip down to soak into the soil, beginning the cycle anew. These flows connect the forest to the atmosphere, the ocean, the clouds, the streams, the distant cities that depend on forest watersheds. The trees stand as intermediaries between earth and sky, cycling matter and energy in patterns that sustain not just themselves, but countless other forms of life. The wisdom of the forest floor. While we have spent much time looking upward toward the canopy and the towering trunks that define the redwood forest's most obvious character, the forest floor deserves its own contemplation. Here, in the dim light beneath the ancient giants, a different world exists. One of decomposition and renewal, of moisture and shadow, of slow transformation and patient recycling. The forest floor is where death becomes life again, where fallen giants give rise to new generations, where the nutrients that built massive trunks return to the soil to nourish future growth. Walking through a redwood forest, your feet sink slightly into the soft ground. The surface is carpeted with needles in various stages of decay, from fresh fallen russet brown to decomposed black, mixed with fragments of bark, small twigs, and the occasional larger branch that has fallen from far above. This layer of organic material, called duff or litter, can be several inches deep in undisturbed areas. It is constantly being added to from above as trees shed needles, bark, and branches, and constantly being consumed from below by decomposer organisms that break down the organic matter and incorporate it into the mineral soil. The decomposition process in redwood forests proceeds slowly compared to warmer, wetter forests. The cool temperatures, even in summer, slow the metabolic rates of decomposer organisms. The tannins in redwood needles and wood inhibit many bacteria and fungi, further slowing decay. As a result, organic material accumulates at the surface rather than being rapidly incorporated into the soil. This accumulation creates the deep duff layer characteristic of old-growth forests and provides habitat for countless organisms. Beneath the duff lies the mineral soil, typically dark and rich in organic matter near the surface, gradually transitioning to lighter colors at greater depth. The soil in prime redwood habitat tends to be acidic, a result of the tannin-rich organic matter that weathers into it. Despite this acidity, or perhaps because of it, redwood forest soils support distinctive plant communities adapted to these conditions. Ferns are particularly abundant, with species like sword fern, lady fern, and five-finger fern forming dense carpets in areas with sufficient light. The fronds of sword fern, bright green and reaching several feet in length, are particularly characteristic of the redwood understory, creating a lush, almost tropical appearance. Other understory plants include redwood sorrel, a small plant with clover-like leaves, and delicate white or pink flowers that blooms in spring. The leaves of redwood sorrel fold up at night or during very bright conditions, then unfold again when light levels are favorable, a behavior called nyctinasty. Huckleberry bushes grow in the understory and on the lower branches of trees, producing small berries that feed birds and mammals. Various species of moss and lichen cover logs, rocks, and the bases of trees, adding splashes of green and gray to the brown forest floor. In areas where the canopy is more open, either naturally or due to tree falls that have created gaps, more diverse plant communities develop. Salal, a shrub with thick, leathery leaves and small urn-shaped flowers, often dominates these areas. Rhododendrons, both native species and occasionally escaped cultivated varieties, bloom with showy pink or purple flowers in late spring and early summer. Azaleas provide additional color, and thimbleberry bushes offer both white flowers and edible fruit. The fallen logs that litter the forest floor deserve special attention. A large redwood that falls creates a massive linear feature on the forest landscape, a trunk that may be 10 to 20 feet in diameter and 100 or more feet long, containing thousands of cubic feet of wood. This log will persist for centuries, gradually decomposing and returning its stored nutrients to the soil. But it is far more than just a slowly rotting piece of wood. It is a habitat, a nursery, a structural element that shapes water flow and provides cover, and a slowly released reservoir of nutrients. Fallen logs provide habitat for countless organisms. Insects, particularly beetles and their larvae, bore into the wood, creating networks of tunnels. Carpenter ants excavate galleries, forming the colonies that may persist for many years. These insects in turn become food for woodpeckers, which excavate the decaying wood in search of prey, creating cavities that may later be used by other birds, small mammals, or even amphibians. Salamanders take refuge in the moist spaces beneath logs during dry periods, and many species lay their eggs in the damp crevices between log and soil. Fungi are the primary agents of wood decomposition. Numerous species of wood decay fungi colonize fallen redwood logs, their thread-like hyphae penetrating the wood and secreting enzymes that break down cellulose and lignin, the complex molecules that give wood its structure. Some fungi cause white rot, which preferentially decomposes lignin and leaves the wood with a bleached, stringy texture. Others cause brown rot, which primarily attacks cellulose and leaves the wood with a dark, blocky appearance. The fruiting bodies of these fungi, mushrooms and conchs, emerge from the log's surface during appropriate weather conditions, releasing spores that will colonize other dead wood and continue the cycle of decomposition. The top surface of a fallen log often becomes a raised garden where mosses, lichens, small ferns, and even tree seedlings establish. These nurse logs provide elevated positions above the deep duff of the forest floor, offering better access to light and reduced competition from established plants. Many young redwoods, as well as hemlocks, spruces, and other tree species begin life on nurse logs. As the seedling grows and its roots extend downward, they eventually reach past the decaying log to the mineral soil beneath. By the time the log has fully decomposed, decades or centuries later, the tree that established on it may be large enough to stand independently. In old-growth forests, it is common to see rows of trees growing in straight lines, marking the location of nurse logs that have completely decomposed, their former presence revealed only by the spatial pattern of the trees they nurtured. Streams add another dimension to the forest floor ecosystem. The sound of flowing water is a constant presence in many redwood groves, a gentle background murmur that enhances the peaceful atmosphere. These streams, fed by winter rain and supplemented by summer fog drip, run cold and clear over gravel, sand, and rounded stones. In some places, larger rocks create small waterfalls and pools. Logs that have fallen across streams create miniature dams that form additional pools and provide cover for fish. The stream-side areas, called riparian zones, support specialized plant communities. Alders grow along stream banks, their roots providing erosion control and their leaves enriching the soil with nitrogen. The trees form dense thickets in some areas, creating tunnel-like passages where streams flow beneath overhanging branches. In more open sections, sedges and rushes grow in the moist soil at the water's edge. The cool, moist conditions near streams support luxuriant growths of moss, and the rocks in and alongside the water are often completely covered in emerald green cushions. These streams are more than just aesthetic features. They are the arteries of the forest, transporting nutrients, sediments, and organisms. They provide water for all the forest's inhabitants, from the smallest insects to the largest mammals. They serve as spawning and rearing habitat for salmon and trout, connecting the forest to the ocean in a cycle that brings marine-derived nutrients inland. When salmon return from the ocean to spawn and die in forest streams, their bodies decompose and release nutrients that fertilize the forest, benefiting trees and plants that grow along the banks. This transfer of nutrients from ocean to forest is a hidden subsidy that enriches the ecosystem. As you rest now, your mind drifting deeper towards sleep, imagine yourself lying beside a stream in a redwood forest. The water flows gently past, creating its soft, constant music. The air is cool and damp, smelling of earth and growing things. Above you, the trunks rise into dimness, and the canopy is so far overhead that it seems like another sky, green and distant. The forest floor cradles you, soft with needles and moss. You are surrounded by life in countless forms, from the bacteria in the soil beneath you to the birds in the branches above, all interconnected, all participating in the grand cycles of growth and decay, life and death that have continued here for countless centuries and will continue for countless more. You are part of this for a moment, held in the embrace of the forest floor, safe and at peace. Conclusion: living monuments of time. As our journey through the redwood forest draws to a gentle close, as the fog thickens around the ancient trunks and darkness settles softly over the canopy far above, we find ourselves back where we began, standing small among giants, humbled by the scale of these trees and the depth of time they represent. We have wandered together through millions of years of evolutionary history, through the intricate dance of fog and forest, through the vertical worlds of canopy ecosystems, and the hidden lives of creatures adapted to this unique habitat. We have seen how these trees survive fire and flood, how they reproduce and grow, how they shape and are shaped by the landscape they inhabit. The coast redwood is more than a tree. It is a living connection to Earth's distant past, a survivor from an age when dinosaurs walked beneath similar trees in forests that spread across much of the northern hemisphere. The redwoods that grow today along the California coast are the descendants of those ancient forests, refugees that retreated to this narrow, fog-wrapped strip of coastline as climates changed and continents shifted. They carry within their genes the accumulated wisdom of 200 million years of evolution, the strategies for survival refined through countless generations, through extinction events and ice ages, and the slow, patient adaptation to changing conditions. These trees stand as monuments to persistence, to the power of life to endure through challenge and change. A redwood that sprouted 2,000 years ago was a seedling when the Roman Empire controlled the Mediterranean world, a young tree when the Middle Ages began, approaching maturity when the Renaissance flowered, and an ancient giant when the Industrial Revolution transformed human civilization. Such a tree has witnessed more human history than any written record can capture, has been a silent observer to the entire arc of modern human society, and yet it continues simply growing, adding its rings year after year, reaching always toward the sky with patient determination. Standing in a redwood forest, particularly an old-growth grove, where the largest and oldest trees still stand, produces a feeling that is difficult to articulate but universally recognized by those who experience it. The sense of scale, the realization of how small we are compared to these trees, the recognition of how brief our lives are compared to theirs, creates a shift in perspective that can be both humbling and strangely comforting. We are reminded that we are part of something much larger than ourselves, participants in processes and patterns that extend far beyond individual human experience. The forest was here before we were born, and will be here after we are gone, continuing its slow growth, its patient persistence, its quiet contribution to the health and balance of the planet. The redwoods also remind us of our responsibility as a species that has come to dominate the Earth's ecosystems. The fact that only a small fraction of the original old-growth forest remains, that logging removed the majority of these ancient groves in just a century and a half, speaks to our capacity for destruction as well as our capacity for restraint and restoration. The forests that remain exist largely because people chose to protect them, recognizing their value, and working to preserve these remarkable ecosystems for future generations. Organizations like Save the Redwoods League, the Sierra Club, the National Park Service, and countless other groups and individuals have fought to protect redwood forests, establishing state and national parks that now safeguard some of the finest remaining groves. But protection of old growth is not enough. We must also consider how to manage the young forests that now cover much of the redwood region, how to foster the development of new old-growth forests over the coming centuries, and how to address the threats posed by climate change, particularly the declining frequency of coastal fog. The concept of potential elder trees offers one hopeful path forward, a way to ensure that some trees in today's young forests will be allowed to grow into the ancient giants of tomorrow, developing over centuries the structural complexity and ecological richness that characterize true old-growth forests. Climate change presents the greatest long-term challenge to redwood forests. If summer fog continues to decline, if temperatures continue to rise, if precipitation patterns shift dramatically, the narrow coastal strip where redwoods thrive may become less suitable for these trees. The southern end of the range, already at the dry edge of redwood habitat, may become too hot and dry to support redwoods. Even in the core of the range, changes in fog patterns could stress trees and alter forest composition. Yet, redwoods have survived dramatic climate changes before. They persisted through the ice ages, adapted to the warming that followed, and continue to grow today despite a century and a half of intensive human impact. If we provide them with sufficient protected habitat, if we allow young forests to mature into old growth, and if we address the root causes of climate change by reducing greenhouse gas emissions, redwoods may once again prove their remarkable resilience. The cultural and spiritual value of redwoods cannot be measured in board feet of lumber or tons of sequestered carbon, though both of these are important. These forests inspire us. They connect us to something older and wiser than ourselves. They offer perspective on our place in the world and our relationship with the natural systems that support all life on Earth. Millions of people visit Redwood parks each year, walking among the giants, looking up into the fog-shrouded canopies, feeling the thick, soft bark beneath their fingertips, breathing the cool, moist air that smells of earth and living green. These experiences shape how we think about nature, about conservation, about what we value and what we want to preserve for our children and their children. As we bring this gentle journey to its close, as your eyes grow heavy and sleep begins to claim you, I want to thank you for joining me in this exploration of the Redwood Forest. If you enjoyed this peaceful drift through science and nature, consider liking this video or subscribing to Sleepy Science Society. Your support helps other sleepy souls find this channel and allows me to continue creating these quiet journeys where knowledge and rest intertwine. But for now, let these thoughts settle and fade. Let the image of the redwood forest remain with you as you sleep, the towering trunks, the soft fog, the filtered light, the sense of ancient patience and enduring presence. Imagine yourself now lying on the soft forest floor, needles cushioning your head, the air cool and moist around you. Above, the trunks like columns in a vast natural cathedral, disappearing into gray mist. You can hear the gentle plink of fog drip on leaves, the soft rush of a distant stream, the occasional call of a bird settling for the night. Your breathing slows and deepens. Your body relaxes completely, muscles releasing their tension one by one. The peace of the forest enters you, and you become part of its quiet rhythm, part of the patient growth and gentle persistence that defines this place. The redwoods will still be here tomorrow. They will be here for centuries and millennia to come, if we protect them, if we allow them to grow, if we remember that some things are more valuable standing than fallen, more precious as living presence than as commodities to be consumed. Let that thought comfort you now as you drift away. The forest continues its slow, patient growth. The fog drifts in from the sea. The cycles of life and death, growth and decay, challenge and survival continue as they have for millennia. And you, for this moment, are held in that embrace, part of the forest, part of the story, resting beneath the giants as sleep finally, gently, completely takes hold. Good night.